Another milestone for Vince Carter is his Toronto Raptors jersey will soon hang from the rafters in the Scotiabank Arena. On Saturday, Carter will be the first player to receive this high honor, but the decision was met with some skepticism. The former Raptor, also known as Air Canada, left the team in 2004 on very poor terms. So for more on what all this means for Carter and for Raptors and Raptors fans, let's bring in Aaron Rose, reporter for Sports Illustrated. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me on.
Aaron, lots has been printed and shared on what Carter meant for basketball in Canada, but what did Vince Carter mean to the Toronto Raptors as they were an emerging NBA team?
Yeah, there are people who believe that this franchise wouldn't be here right now if not for Carter. We saw the team over in Vancouver that never had Vince Carter, of course, and they didn't manage to stick around Vancouver and, of course, left for Memphis. But he was the first true superstar for this franchise, and I think he brought fans, from coast to coast to coast to basketball. Because of the way that he, the high-flying theatrics and the dunks that he had, he made so many young children, myself included, fall in love with basketball and the Toronto Raptors.
One of the first Raptors games I ever went to was an invite, and it was towards the end of his time here in Toronto. And I remember somebody behind us saying, I'm close enough, I could probably throw my drink at him. That was the feeling around Vince Carter just before he left. Why did Raptors fans hold so much hostility towards Carter at the end?
I think when you love someone the way Raptors fans love Vince Carter, the emotions are intense. Unfortunately, with the way it ended, he sort of, stopped playing as hard as he had in his peak in Toronto, if you will. I think the team was not playing as well as he would have liked. The Raptors were never able to build a true perennial contender around him, a team worthy of going to the playoffs multiple years. And I think he had gone through so many different managerial changes, different coaches, different front office, and he was kind of tired of going through the same cycle over and over again. And, the truth is somewhere in between. Management traded him in a disastrous trade, one of the worst trades in franchise history. And I think when Raptors fans saw him again, they saw a guy that, he was our son. And he left and he wanted to leave. And I think that really hurt Raptors fans for probably about a decade there before, I think, more recently, the two sides have come together, and now we're having this amicable moment on Saturday.
Yeah. In time, we know that it can soften the focus on some of those issues. But there are some critics left, and they are voicing that they believe Kyle Lowry should be the first player to receive this honor. Why do you think the Raptors chose Carter?
Because Kyle Lowry isn't retired. And it's probably that simple. We were talking to Kyle the other day, and it sounds like the Raptors reached out to him and said, what do you think of this? He didn't go into the details, but he basically said conversations were had. If Kyle was already retired, Kyle would be the number one guy. But because he's still playing and nobody knows when he's going to end, I asked him that question, are you retiring this year? He wouldn't answer me. So because of that, it's the 30th season. It's a season to look back at Vince's time with the Raptors. And also Vince is going into the Hall of Fame this year, or went into the Hall of Fame, excuse me. So those things, I think, made Vince kind of the obvious choice to be the first guy to go up in the Raptors.
What do you think the crowd reception will be like for him on Saturday?
I think it'll be overwhelmingly positive. I'm sure there will be a few people booing or a few people who sit quietly. But I think at this point, as Vince said, he said, you can put those feelings aside for one day. Let's have this moment where we celebrate the franchise. We celebrate what I did for this country, for this team. So for one, whatever it is, 5-minute period, let's stand, let's have an ovation, and then everyone can feel however they feel moving forward after that. All
right, I'm going to ask you to crystal ball for just a second. Which players do you believe are next in line for a jersey retirement for the Raptors?
Yeah, I think, of course, Kyle Lowry's number one, and I think he might go a step further. He might get a statue outside the arena. If anyone's going to get that honor, it's probably Kyle. The question I have is who's next? And DeMar DeRozan is going to be here when Vince Carter goes up in the Raptors, of course, with the Sacramento Kings. And I asked Kyle, what do you think? Should DeMar go up? And he said, of course. I think DeMar has a chance. It sounds like the Raptors are considering it. Masai Ujiri hinted that he might be next, but I think it's probably those two. And then after that, I don't think Pascal Siakam ever reached that territory, or Kawhi Leonard or Fred VanVleet, but maybe Scotty Barnes one day. He's a long way from that, but I guess that would be far in the future, the next in line to potentially after Kyle and DeMar.
In the meantime, we're going to take a moment on Saturday to stop and celebrate just how far this franchise has come. Aaron Rose, reporter for Sports Illustrated. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.